We are going to hear from a lady who is extremely accomplished, and we're fortunate that we could bring her here this very day. And so I know by hearing this lady, many of you are going to, I hope she is available to you, because her message is one that many people need to hear. Beth attended more than 3,000 networking events in the last 15 years. She has published a book on the subject because she learned so much, and she felt that the techniques that she learned, she wanted to pass on to the public. And so we even have the opportunity today to buy her book, and it's Networking on Purpose. And so it's out front for $15, and I highly recommend that you get this because networking is absolutely crucial in building your business. In 2018, terrible loss reminded Beth of how extremely important it is to get out of the business mode and build personal connections. So today, she is going to share that story with us, and she's also going to share some of the business aspects with us and also to give us strategies there. So she is known as the networking motivator. I say the networking guru. And her topic today is love, loss, and networking, the personal side of business. Beth Bridges. Beth.
Well, it was a pretty typical work day, and I was working in my office. The boss comes in. Hey, you got a minute? Right? You always got a minute for the boss, right? And he came in, though, and it was a little different this time because he shut the door behind him. That didn't happen very often. And he sat down, and I wasn't really worried. Now, this was 20 years ago. This was the first really big job I had out of college. I'd been there for 5 years. Part of the job was a grant program. We had multiplied that by about 5 times bigger over that time. So I wasn't sure exactly what this conversation was going to be. And he sat down, and he sat in the chair across from me, and it was quiet for a moment, and I looked at him, and he had a tear in his eye, like in both eyes, like big tears. And he said, "We're really worried about you." And it was a rather shocking moment, of course, because in business, you expect that it's all business all the time, and that you're either going to get praised for the work you're doing, or you're going to get scolded for the work you weren't doing. And instead, this was my boss telling me that he and my coworkers had noticed what a hard time I was having with my personal life. I had been married for about 7 years, and it was failing, frankly. But I didn't want to say anything, of course, because we do business. It's not personal. We soldier on. You know, we're tough. But of course, though, they noticed. But I'd been like a person who is completely in the dark, right? Imagine you're in the dark, you're alone, you don't know who's out there, it doesn't feel like anybody is out there, you're in this huge, dark space, thinking you're all alone. And then someone says something like, we're worried about you. And you realize that you just needed to open your eyes, and you're still in maybe a dark place, but you think maybe there's other people around. Maybe you're not completely and utterly alone. And then you realize that if you just had a little tiny bit of light, and you start looking around, there's other people, and they have little tiny lights. And you realize not only are you not alone, but you've just sent out a little signal that you're there, and they're sending out a little signal that they're there. And now you can start bringing your lights together, and you're a little less alone, and then it's a little brighter. And that's what I realized, that I had not been conscious of the other people who were around me, who wanted to help, who were aware of what was going on. Because I was not aware of how much they cared. I was thinking all business, and I was, again, not aware of the personal side of that. And that is, when we're talking about the personal side of building a network, that simple consciousness is the first part of that. I end up talking to a lot of business groups, and I ask them, what do they think the purpose of networking is? And they do bring up all those things that I've said, oh, it's to reach more prospects and build my business and increase my visibility and reach out to more people and get leads, make sales. Nope, please, we are not trying to make sales while we are networking. That's one of the first things we teach, right? It's poor manners as well as anything else, correct? But all those are wonderful goals. They're all a wonderful end point, but they're not the purpose. And so I've been teaching this for years, the purpose of networking. Put yourself in a position to give and receive value. And yet it's a perfect statement for friendship. If we want to become friends with someone, we're in a position where we're willing to give value. Then that's how we know someone's conscious and aware and wants to be a friend. Perhaps they give us value back. We get to receive value. And so this has been quite the switch for me from talking about business and how we're going to give value and what kind of value are we going to give into talking a little bit more about friendship. This is why I've started talking about this, because when I start telling this story and when I start talking about networking from more of the personal side, I start to hear more and more from people. Well, now recently there have been several more studies where they're talking about the health effects of loneliness. And it turns out that loneliness is worse than almost anything. That basically now loneliness is the new sitting down while smoking. By yourself. So it's a little funny, but it's also very serious. And you would think, though, we're all grown adults, we're all active in our communities, but the prevalence of loneliness in America is really surprising. And these are several studies. 2018 Cigna study, nearly half of adults sometimes or always feel lonely, and only half of those surveyed had some sort of meaningful in-person interaction on a daily basis. So that means there's all kinds of people out there who go for days without having some sort of meaningful interaction. And checking out at the grocery store and somebody saying, have a nice day, while not even making eye contact with you, is not meaningful social interaction. So networking is not just about building your business. Hey, you want to buy my stuff? Do you want to buy my stuff? Do you want to buy my stuff? Right? It's also about us connecting as human beings to each other in a way that is meaningful. And I think we forget that sometimes as business people, right? Because we're eye on the prize. Let's get the deal. Let's make the prospects. Let's qualify somebody. And we forget that there is this human side and the value of it. Let me tell you what. You want to know what a tough sell is? Telling a bunch of hardcore, business people that you should go to networking events for your health. But I think sometimes that I must speak to groups, and there is somebody sitting there in the audience who is at that very, very moment very lonely. And so consciousness, being conscious and aware of what's going on around us, is the very first part to building. It'll work in your business networking, of course, as well, but from the personal side. So think and be conscious of potential friends and potential connections and sources of help, right? Who's open to becoming a friend? There we go. We've got some hands up. That was a rhetorical question, and these two beautiful ladies who I've known for many, many, many years, I will tell you that absolutely is true. Lovely people there. How often are we at home? Maybe we're watching TV. or we're on our phones, or we're somewhere with people and they want to tell you bad news. By the way, I don't want to hear any bad news. Like my friends are like, did you hear about that? I'm like, stop. Can't. But when somebody does that and they tell you about something terrible that's just happened, or did you hear about, or you're on Facebook, or you're on the internet and you see terrible news flash up, here's what I want you to do. Feel the compassion and the sadness, and then reach out to someone. And it may be someone who you know is having a hard time. It may just be someone you haven't talked to in a while. It may be just someone that you want to say, hey, just thinking of you. Take that terrible feeling of helplessness and sadness, and turn it into compassion, and then take immediate action. Immediate action. And it doesn't have to be a lot. A text. Now there's different groups that I talk to whose phones are surgically attached to their hands. You know. We have good etiquette here though. And we don't do that. But your phone is right there all the time. And just a quick message. And even if it is somebody who's going through a hard time, some of the best messages I got from people were, no need to reply. I just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you. Just that. Just having that compassion and turning it into action whenever you hear something terrible. And it seems so tiny, but it's huge. It's going to change things for somebody, maybe even you.